Hello buddy, my name is Amari Gatto, and today we're going to see what are the top 10 important tips you need to pay attention before buying or building a PC. So let's go ahead.
Maybach music.
So number one is the storage. As we know, storage is the amount of data we can keep on the computer, and the more storage you will have means the more data you can save on the PC. So if I tell you about storage, the first thing will come to your mind is a hard disk, which is this small one which you'll find in your laptop, while the other one for desktop will be more bigger in size. So the old models are called hard disk. It has a magnetic disk inside, and which they will rotate by this motor, and there's like a needle which reads the data from them. These hard disks will be heavy, weighing from like 200 grams till 1 kg for the old hard drives, and they will be also noisy and they will take more power. But now we have something new which is really developed and very fast and efficient. It's called the SSD, which means the solid state drive. This device, the newer one, the drive, it has no disks inside, no magnetic disk, no motor, no mechanical stuff. It's only digital components. So what's the use of this SSD? As we said, this will be noisy, it will shake, it will vibrate, sometimes it will die suddenly. But the SSD, they are so light, and maybe starting from 70 grams if it is the M2 model, they are very light, they take or use less power, very less power, and they make no noise. Also, the lifespan of these things are very long, like 25 years or something, while on these we have only 1.5 million hours of work. After that they will die suddenly. Also, we all have like these hard disks which they suddenly died and we lost the data. And also the chance of having a bad sector on these are more. So, shall I buy hard disks or shall I buy SSDs? Unfortunately, SSD are very expensive. So for 120 GB of the SSD, it will cost you around $100. While for these things, for 2000 GB, you can pay the same amount of $100. So now maybe you'll be confused, shall I buy a 100 GB of SSD or 2 terabytes of an hard disk drive HDD of the old one? So the best thing is to buy both of them. For example, a 2 terabyte hard disk for $100 and buy another SSD, which is, for example, 120 or 256 GB will be more than enough. No need to buy more. So the SSD, what we're going to do with it, we're going to download or install the operation system, which is the Windows, and the softwares that we're going to use mostly on that SSD, while the data, the media, the projects or the videos or photos, we're going to save it on this one. So we're going to make sure that the working speed, the boot up speed and the Windows performance will be very fast. Even for the software that we use, it will be very fast. But when we work on like some projects or videos or games, we can download it, put it here on the normal hard disk, and you'll get an acceptable performance of these two. So also another point I want to mention, the old hard drives has a read speed, which is like response speed. So these models were a little slow. So they respond in like 4 part of seconds till 12 part of seconds to respond to your click or to open a file from them. While the SSD will take only 1 part of a second to respond for a reading from this device. Also the transfer rate, if you're transferring data between hard disk or between a hard disk and another media, for example a flash or memory card, you'll get like a maximum speed of 59 megabytes per second. While from the SSD you will get a speed of 100 megabytes per second, which is pretty amazing and fast. Also for the Windows, when logging in or shutting down the computer, it will be so fast and amazing. So as we told you, buy an SSD for the Windows, 120 GB is enough, or 250, okay? And buy another 2 terabytes or 1 terabyte for your data and games. That's it for the hard disk. Let's go to point number 2.
Maybach music.
Point number 2 is the CPU or the processor. As we know, CPU means Central Processing Unit or Center Processing Unit. This unit will handle all the processing and operation of the PC, and it's very important. So now you're gonna think like, what we need to buy? Core i7? Always people think like, take Core i7, it's good. No, it's not always that the Core i7 is good or needed to buy. Sometimes a Core i3 works or perform better than a Core i5 depending on which model or generation. This is the heatsink and this is the fan of it, and there is a CPU underneath it, which is a very small square shape. So CPUs, there is two main brands, which are Intel and AMD. AMD has many sub-brands. They are more focused on games. If you're focused on going on games, buy an AMD motherboard and AMD CPU. If you're focusing on softwares and editing, like anything, graphics, Photoshop, Lightroom, Premiere, After Effects, go with Intel, because Intel is more compatible and has better updates with the other softwares. Also make sure to check the socket number of your CPU and if it is compatible with your motherboard, because motherboard also can't accept all the CPUs, only depending if it is the same socket number. For example, LGA 1150 for that Core i7. Also, Intel made many CPUs as we remember. I don't want to go before very old. Let's go to the what we remember. We remember the Pentium 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we had some Core T-Duo and some 2-3 models which they weren't so successful in sales or famous. Then we had the Core i3, 5, 7. Core i3 and 5 and 7, it's not a speed. It's just a simple upgrades in the model, which they become a little more efficient, they consume less power, they give you more performance. So don't go directly to Core i7 and buy it. Maybe you will need to save some money from CPU and put it on some other components. So my advice to see like which CPU you are buying and what you need it for, and buy this model. So even Core i5 will be enough if you are just using Photoshop. Even Core i3 will be good for you. But if you need some heavy rendering machine for big projects, designs, 3D Max, graphics, and a lot of video work, then go for Core i7, but check also which generation, because they also have a generations like 3, 4, 5, and many models are there, and it has a cache memory and many subcategories. So there's two types of cooling for the CPU. There is air cooling, which I'm using now, which is a simple heat sink with an attached fan on it to spread or to drag out the heat or to cool it out. And there's another type, which is water or liquid cooling. So the air one, this one, the air cooling, it's very simple. It has no other components and it's very cheap. For example, this one, which is a Cooler Master 212 Evo, it costed around $30 to $40. While if you go for liquid cooling, it will cost you minimum $150 for a good quality, like brand. Some people say go for water cooling, it's very good, it will be so cold. Why you need this PC to be so cold? Why you need that CPU to be frozen? Or it's not frozen. There's not much difference between these two. So a simple fan like this, like Cooler Master 212 Evo, will give you a very good performance. So the idling temperature will be like around 36 Celsius I'm getting now, which is really good. And under load, it will reach maximum 50, 60. That's it. I don't want it to be more cold. Some people say, no, go with more cooling like stuffs or things. No need to spend a lot of money for water cooling, because keep in mind, if you pay less or buy a cheap quality water cooling system, you will face many problems. Sometimes the pump will die and it will stop circulating the water and you'll end up boiling, or your PC will heat up, your CPU. Also, sometimes you'll get a water leakage from the water pipes and this system. So it will leak out to the other components. So it might drop some water on the motherboard or on the graphics card and it will burn it. So that's a kind of risky. You don't need to take that risk for nothing, just for the water name. Otherwise, go for expensive cooling, then yeah, it's worth it, but no need to waste this much amount of money. Unless if you are an overclocker, which I'll tell you what's overclocking, and a hardcore gamer, or you want to gain that some extra benefits out of the CPU, if it is a K model, then go with water cooling, but my advice is don't go for it. CPU models are a lot. As we heard, there's Core i3, Core i5, Core i7, and each one has a generation and each one has a subcategories, and there's a lot of difference. According to your needs, you'll buy the one that you need. So there are some models which they have a K at the end. What does this mean? Means it's overclockable, means you can overclock it. So what's overclocking? Overclocking means that you can overclock or play or change with the voltage and frequency of your CPU to take some extra advantages to get some more or better performance for your CPU. So this thing is kind of risky. If you don't know how to use it, you will burn your CPU or you will damage some other components of the PC. So that's just for the hardcore gamers or the people who seek for benchmarking and some PC race. For regular use, don't go for the K model, stuck to any other normal model which will be kind of cheaper. So that's all what you need about CPUs, and let's see the next point.
Maybach music.
Number 3 is the RAM, which is the random access memory, or you can also call it a memory. So let's see which memory we're gonna need. For example, 8 GB, 16 GB, 32 GB, 4 GB. So for regular use, if you are a normal user of the computer only for web surfing and Facebook, 4 GB is more than enough for you. If you work on editing softwares like Photoshop, Lightroom, Premiere, 8 GB will be also good for you, and don't go for 16 GB unless you are using more graphics editing, for example video editing, and then you will need a 16 or more RAMs. Also keep in mind that RAMs has also something called frequency, which is not the GB thing, it's megahertz. So we have like 1333, which is 1333 megahertz, and there is 1866 and there is 2133. It will give you like a simple differences in the performance. Of course, the more is the best, but no need to spend also a lot. Like 1866 megahertz will be more than enough. 8 GB, maximum 16 GB. Unless you are a video editor, then go for 32 GB. That's it. And also the memory, the random access, which are memories, are always located next to the CPU. Why? Because as the name says, random access memory, which is randomly, it will take data randomly and it will be stored on it just for the CPU, so it can use it faster because it has a very high speed transfer rate to the CPU. So the computer can process whatever you're working on, it will be processed in a much faster way compared to the hard disk. So all these will be cached, like hidden or used temporarily on the memories. And once you want to save your project or save whatever you want, it will be sent from memory or the RAMs, it will be sent to the hard disks. Also, once you switch off your CPU or the computer or the PC, all the data stored on RAM will disappear because it's cached temporary memory. So, as I told you, this is the memories, and some PCs or motherboards have RAMs on both sides, which can take up to 64 GB or something. That's for the high-end PC. So that's what you need for the memories, and let's see the next point.
Maybach music.
Number 4 is the monitor, which you're going to use it to see what's happening or see how you're editing or see the game. So some of us will say, let's go buy one big 40-inch something screen. I would never advise you to take a bigger screen because you will need to go way far from the PC, so you'll be able to see the entire frame. No need to go for a 4K screen, which are pretty expensive, because till now nobody is using 4K online or anywhere. It's still not spread. For me, it's not worth it to spend that extra money for a 4K screen. Otherwise, buy another normal good quality like Full HD 1080 or something. And you also can buy 2 screens and put them one next to each other or one above each other, like I'm using 2 screens now, because it will be so helpful if you are using Lightroom or Premiere Pro or After Effects, because they will help you to arrange your working area in a very good, like fast way to access them. So if you were editing or mostly Lightroom user or Premiere user for video editing, better to go with 2 screens, same, or maybe one smaller, but better to buy same brand because it will give you the same taste, same dimension, same colors, and add them one next to each other. It will give you a very faster workflow in the editing. If not, buy a single normal 27, it will be more than enough, like the one below which I'm using, which is a BenQ 27-inch. I think it costed around 300 bucks. So that's all what you need to know about the screen. You can check some extra specification like tick rate, refresh rate, contrast, some things. This you can search online. I don't want to go in details because we want to make this fast as possible. So let's go to the next point.
Maybach music.
Number 5 is the graphics card or the GPU. So what's the graphics card? The graphics card will handle all the graphics processing in addition to the processor, because sometimes the CPU can't handle all this processing alone. So the graphics card, which is here, it will have another dedicated processor only to process the graphics things. What are the graphics? The graphics will be the designs, the video editing, the games. All these are graphics, which has some graphics details need to be drawn. So all these, in assistant to that CPU, will have an extra processor here just dedicated for that thing. So graphics card, as we know, it has two things, which is the memory, which mostly we heard like 1 GB or 2 GB or 4 GB or 8 GB. No need to go for very, a new or expensive graphics card. 2 GB nowadays, 1 GB even will work. If you're using your computer for Facebooking or normal web surfing and you don't use any software, 1 GB graphics card will be overkill for your PC, and you can go even for a half GB, which is a 512 megabyte graphics card. You don't need any graphics card if you are using your PC for office work. If you're using your PC for games, video editing, or Photoshop and Lightroom, you will need a graphics card because it will make your work very fast. So 1 GB, 2 GB will be very good in this case. If you want to spend more, go for a 4 GB. Also pay attention to the model name and see if it is compatible with your CPU. As we know, also the graphics card will take another cable for power supplying to it, and it also has a dedicated fans on it to make it cold always. So that's what you need for the graphics card, and let's see the next point.
Maybach music.
Number 6 is the internet connection. As we know now, internet has become so popular and famous, and it's the same way you're watching me today with the internet, of course. But there's many types of connections which can be used. So shall we go with Wi-Fi or we connect the LAN wire? Of course, for easy things and very fast and clean disk, no cables will be there, we can use the Wi-Fi. But my advice is never go with a Wi-Fi if you really need to use the best of your internet connection. Wi-Fi, as we know, it's a radio signal which will get affected by the obstacles, walls, doors, people, and any other electrical device. All these will affect your Wi-Fi speed and will reduce it. And also the Wi-Fi, which is being used, is the 802.11, and it has many subcategories, which is the N or the G or the B or the AT. All of these models will not give you the expected speed, even if they're saying it will give you 150 megabyte per second or 450 megabyte per second. But I dare you to go now and check your speed connection on your phone by Wi-Fi. It will never cross 100 megabyte per second. If you're using a LAN cable, which is a direct cable from your server or from your modem or from your, for example, router directly to your PC, it will give you a speed of 1 GB, which is 10 times faster than the Wi-Fi. And it will never get affected by any obstacles. You just need to pass one wire. Also, the LAN cable has 3 types, which is the Cat5, Cat5e, and Cat6. All these types, whatever you use, it will give you 1 GB or 5 GB or 10 GB speed, which is pretty fast. So you will get 10 times faster connection, not internet, but connection will be 10 times faster. If you are, for example, having a home shared network, like 2-3 PCs in the home or in the office, and you need to transfer your data, your videos, your photos between your colleagues on another computer, the cable will finish your work in 10 times faster. So this is one important thing to keep in mind, and always use cable connection. One more thing, if you're a gamer and if you play online games, of course you know the ping, which is the latency. The latency is the delay of the signal going out from your PC to the internet service provider, and the delay which is coming from the ISP to your PC. So this delay also will be measured, and it will affect your speed also. So if you're using a Wi-Fi, okay, you'll get a delay with a 15 milliseconds, while if you're using a direct cable, it will give you a 1 milliseconds delay, which is really good because we want a less delay in our connection. So these things that we need to know about cables or Wi-Fi. Let's go to the next point.
Maybach music.
Number 7 is the power supply, or PSU, or the power supplier, so which is located here in my case, or in some other cases it will be located here. Okay, so what this device does, as we know, the components of the computer are very delicate and small, and they don't require much currency or high voltage. So we need something to convert the high voltage, which are 220 for most of countries, and if you're in US, I think you'll get a 110 voltage. So we need to reduce it to 6 or 12 or 9 or 3 volts only. So this thing will handle the converting of power from a high voltage to a lower voltage. Also, we need to make sure that this voltage is constant at one number. We don't want it to go up and down because it will damage the other components. So these things, I mean, the power supply also has a capacity. As you can see today, I'm using a 750 watts. It's kind of more than enough for my PC because I was planning to add more hard disk, so I bought the 750 watts. As we know, the power suppliers start from, I think the old model has 300 and it ends till 1800 watt, which is really expensive, reaching $500. You don't need to buy the bigger capacity and say, okay, let's be safe and put 1000 watt. No, it's overkill for your PC. Just think what you're gonna use, how many hard disks, how many fans, how many graphics card, how many RAMs. And there's a lot of online websites which can calculate the estimated power needed, and according to that you'll buy the power supplier. So for basic use like PC, any normal PC, you can start with a 600 watts. Okay, so 600 is more than enough and it's very safe for you to start. Don't go for 1000 and say I'll be safe and buy. It will be early overkill because the 1000 one will be maybe $200 more. You can invest that money on buying another hard disk maybe. So as I told you, buy a decent quality. For example, Cooler Master, Corsair, there's many famous brands also you can go for. Don't go for the cheaper one which is from China. There's a lot on eBay and Amazon which they are sold for only 10 bucks. No, never go with these because they're really cheap and they give no protection to your PC, and suddenly they'll burn you some components inside. Because as I told you, we need to make sure that the output of it should be like constant at 12 or 6 or 3.3 volts. Otherwise, if it's go higher or lower, your PC is gone. And also there's one more thing in it. In the power suppliers, there are 3 types. One is modular, one is semi-modular, and another one is non-modular. What is the modular? As we know that the power supply will have many output cables. Okay, so one cable will go to the motherboard, another cable will be attached to the hard disk, some cable will be attached to the graphics card, and every component will give that support, will get that support from the power supplier. So sometimes the non-modular power supply will have a lot of, like a bunch of cables, which we will never use, and it will be extra, and it will be always stacked here down, and it will be ugly. Also, it will gather dust, and it will also be like, it will stop or block the airflow, and you will not get like a proper air flowing inside. So there's another model came which is called the modular, which they removed all the cables from the output of the power supply, and only according to your needs you're gonna put that cable and attach it. Otherwise there's no extra cable located near the power supplier. Well, this will be more expensive. Some people can't afford it because it will be maybe $200 more than the normal one. So there's another brand or another type that they came up with, which is called semi-modular, which is really reasonable priced, and also you can buy it. Why? Because they added the basic cables, which are really fixed, they will always be there, and they added some other cables which are extra. Like if you want extra cable, you can put it, but for the basic 4 or 5 cables, they will be fixed always. So that's the semi-modular. My advice is to go with any one of them. Even you can go with the non-modular one, but you can arrange the cables, the extra cables, and hide them somewhere in the back place of the case.
Maybach music.
Number 8 is the USB. As we know that sometimes we need USB sockets to transfer from memory cards, especially if you are photographers or people who always back up on hard disks. So now there is something new called USB 3 and USB 3.1. As we know, the old USB, which is a black socket, it will be kind of slow. But the newer USB port, which is USB 3, it's become bluish color. And there is one more advanced, which is still not published in the market. I mean, maybe it's published, but still not so famous. It's 3.1. So make sure that the motherboard and the case that you're buying, it has a USB 3 port, which is the blue colored one, which will be very fast in transferring the data. The old USB will transfer data for this speed, which is a half GB, okay? While the USB 3 will transfer data with a 5 GB speed. And if you want to go with the 3.1, it will transfer data at 10 GB speed. Let's don't go for the overkill and go with the 3.1, stuck to the 3 only. If you're a photographer and you transfer always from memory cards or you do backups from your cameras, and always, like daily, you should, so you will need a really good quality memory card reader which supports the USB 3. Why? Because it will give you a transfer speed of 5 GB per second instead of a half GB of second, which is 10 times faster. So instead of backing up your memory cards in 10 minutes, you will finish it in 1 minute, which is really good.
Maybach music.
Number 9 is the cable management. If you are building your own PC and not someone professional building for you, you have to make sure that your cable managements are arranged properly. Okay, and you have to arrange it in a way that is really smart and they don't appear as obstacles for 2 reasons. One reason, is to look more smart and decent, and second reason, which is really important, is to make sure that you have a proper airflow. Otherwise, if you put a lot of cables inside, it will be an obstacle for the airflow and it will cause a heating up inside your PC, which will cause extra heating, which will also lead to extra power consumption and also less performance. So make sure to pass your cables, because all the new cases has back side openings and you can pass your cables to the back side. I will show you this picture example of my PC of how I made the back place, how I arranged the cables in a way that they never become an obstacle for the airflow. So arrange your cables or let someone professional do it for you. Let's go to the next point.
Maybach music.
Number 10 is the fans and airflow, which is really important and no one give a huge care for it, but it's really important and it can really improve your performance of the PC. As we know in physics that the hot air goes up and the cold air stays down because of the air density. I don't want to go in physics, but let's apply it here. So as we know, we can add fans. For example, my case, which is from Circle, the model is I think CC830. It has 2 fans here, okay, which they absorb, they drag the air inside by suction and they take the air inside, so it will get used here inside. So I have a kind of flow. So you have to make sure that your airflow is proper. So the air should come from down or front and go from up or the back. So now in this PC, I made my PC. From here, there's 2 fans to intake, okay, for the intake. Here will be suction, and this one also will be suction. 2 suction fan here will suck the air inside, okay. And as you know that the video card or the graphics card has a built-in fans, which they will take the air from here and take it out, push it out. So the air will come from here, it will also cool the hard disk, and it will go here, and it will go also here. So it will be like this. There's a fan here, okay? It also will do suction from the fan, not pushing. Okay, so there is some people saying pushing is good or the suction is better, but no, it was never proved which one is better. Both of them are good. Whether it is pushing or sucking or suction, both of them are good and efficient. For me, for this case, for the CPU, I couldn't put the fan here and make it pushing because I have two rams here and it will block them. So I put the fan on the back side, and there's a small direction here. It's showing you which direction the air will go, so you have to make it like this, and you will know that the fan will do some suction from here. So this air will go directly from here and going out. So I have the flow here is like this because there's a fan here and the air is going like this. For this part, as we said, I have a fan here. It also will do some suction here and push the air inside. Then the power supply also has a fan. Okay, so it will go down. Then again, it will go out from the back. So for the power supply, the air will go like this. Okay? This is the direction of the airflow for the power supply. And for the video card, it will go like this. The cold air will come from here, it will get inside the video card, and it will go out from the back side. And for the CPU, the air will enter from here, will go till here, will get sucked here. And again, this fan, I added two small fans, which I think they are 60 or 80 millimeters, to push the air outside. So I'm having a very good ventilation in my PC to make sure it's always cold. Also, one more thing I added here, which is it comes with factory default with this case. On the top side, it has two fans. I think they are 120 millimeter, and they suck the air outside from here and they take it out. So now my PC, I have two fans pushing in and four fans for the pushing out, which are two here and two up. So my air ventilation is coming like this, which is really perfect. And I have no obstacles here, only one cable, and the other cables are passed from the back side. If you're an overclocker, as we said, or if you want a calm environment, this will give little noise of the fans. You will hear it sometimes. But if you are using a water cooling, you will never hear any noise, and it will be less messy, and there's no dust accumulation, and some good performance also you will get. I mean, water cooling is not that much bad, but at least you have to buy a very decent quality, so you'll get real performance out of it. So as we said, make sure to use proper fan intake and outtake, arrange them in a very smart way. Don't put them like one is pushing, one is sucking, and they will be facing each other. There will be some contraction, there will be some heat trapped inside, and there will be wrong ventilation inside. If you can't do it, let someone professional do it for you. I think that's all what you need to know about the PC building. There's much more details if you go deep inside, but these were like the most important things that I wanted to mention, and you have to pay attention for. If you mastered all these, you will be very good in PCs, and you will understand how to build and how to upgrade your PC in the future also. I hope you like this lesson, and if you like it, please subscribe and comment whatever question you have, and see you in the next lesson. Goodbye.